Goedemiddag allemaal. In Stadskanaal is het 1 uur, dus we gaan beginnen met de training van vandaag. Ik zal even kort een aantal huishoudelijke mededelingen en daarna kort Yash introduceren. En daarna gaan we snel over naar Yash, de man waar het vanmiddag de komende anderhalf uur om draait. Welkom allemaal, mooi dat we weer met zoveel mensen aanwezig zijn tijdens deze online training. Dat doet ons deugd en dat geeft aan dat in deze tijden online een mooi instrument is om dit soort zaken met elkaar te delen. Ik ben ontzettend trots dat we vandaag Yash hebben weten te strikken om ons weer verder te helpen en te begeleiden daarin. De meeting wordt opgenomen. Die zal verspreid worden onder de teamleden, zodat degenen die er niet bij kunnen zijn, deze na kunnen kijken. Wel het vriendelijke verzoek om deze niet op social media te posten of al dat soort zaken. Het is voor trainingsdoeleinden en voor intern gebruik. Na de presentatie van Yash is er de mogelijkheid om vragen te stellen. Dus denk daar alvast over na. Want het gebeurt niet iedere dag dat we iemand uit India hebben die we vragen kunnen stellen wat dat betreft. Goed, dan Yash. Ken Yash nou een jaar of 4, 5. Altijd positief, altijd enthousiast. Altijd bijzonder snel. Ik heb een aantal meetingen met hem meegemaakt. Meestal zijn ze in 20 minuten gedaan. Altijd to the point. En altijd waardevol. Yash heeft zijn opleiding gedaan in LA. Daar een aantal eerste werkervaringen opgedaan als barkeeper bij de LAPD, als leraar. En daarna teruggegaan via Dubai naar India om daar een groot aantal bedrijven op te zetten. Dus hij spreekt niet alleen vanuit de theorie, maar ook vanuit de praktijk. Hetgeen hij in de afgelopen jaren geleerd heeft, wil hij graag met ons delen. Hij is een veelgevraagd spreker, zowel in India als daarbuiten. En BNI technisch, hij heeft drie mooie regio's in het prachtige India. 3 grote regio's, 2500 leden bijna. En heeft nog altijd het record van 4 dagen, 4 chapters in 4 dagen. En hij is nog maar 5 jaar geleden begonnen. Dus ik ga niet meer tijd van hem innemen. So, Yash, I just said some nice words about you. The floor is yours. Over to you.
You know, I recorded that because I think that was the coolest introduction that I have not understood. That was very good.
There we go.
All right, Yash, thank you very much. And thank you everyone for coming in. Today's a very special day. I hope you enjoyed my favorite Dutch song. I really love it, even though I understand just the main line from it. But today, I am sad and I am happy. I'm sad because I wish we were doing this in person. And, you know, I had the great opportunity to be there with you guys, thanks to Yash and the team. Unfortunately, that's not happening. Hopefully, we will be able to do that next year. But today is one of those days where we make use of the New World Order. And I want to start by saying, Goedendag. Goedendag, everyone. I hope I got my correct. I think Dutch is more difficult for me than most other languages. I want to say hello to Eric and Mr. Blom. They're good friends, and it's
hello, yes.
Hey, everyone. And thank you, Eric. I know that you played a key role in making sure that Yash knew to bring me on. So thank you very much. Today, I want to break this up into 2 things. I'm told that we have, by the way, Yash, do we have live translation or am I just going in English?
You're just going in English. Absolutely.
Okay, so first question to everyone. We're going to use the chat box a lot, hopefully. And in the next 90 minutes, we're going to break it up as 60 minutes. I have something to share with you, and then we can do a Q&A for as long as you want. Or as long as time allows us. So first question is, everything I have said till now, everyone understands what I'm saying? Is it good? Yes? No? No? Tell me on the chat box. I know that you're awake. I need to know. There we go. Awesome. Let me pull it up. Okay, great. Okay, loud and clear. We're good. You guys are understanding my English. You know, sometimes people tell me I go really fast, and I do. So please tell me if something's, you know, too out of line, and I will stop and repeat it. So I didn't want to talk about just BNI today. I want to first thank you and congratulate you that over the past 2.5 months since this pandemic has taken over, since we've gone online, I know that each one of you directors, so director consultants, executive directors, area directors, and everyone else, ambassadors on the call. I know that you've put in more hours in BNI than you ever have in your lives before. I know it, even though I haven't spoken to any of you, because that's what we've done here. You know, in the past, all of us are part of different communities, and some of us are part of the Christian community, some of us are part of the Muslim community, the Hindu community, the Dutch community, the Indian community, and all communities, several communities, and each community adds value to us. I think each community is important. But can you all tell me very honestly, which one community has been the most engaged in your lives week after week over this period of the pandemic? Which community? There's one community. Absolutely, Jerry, it's BNI. BNI is the one community that has been added no matter what, and now more than ever. And it's incredible to see what it's done, because, you know, 1,500 temples shut down in just my city. In my city over the past 2 months, temples shut down, but we are working 24 hours. And that should tell you the importance of this community that we've built and what impact we've had. And I want to share all of that with you over this presentation. Now, I want to break this presentation up into essentially 3 parts. And the 3 parts are, one is for you as an individual, one is for you as a director, so a little bit of BNI, even though we're not going to discuss too much BNI. And the third is going to be you as a business person, because I understand each one of you is engaged in some of the other business. Now, in that introduction, I'm sure Yash told you, but I've had the awesome privilege of being a part of a few enterprises. And today I run and own more than 10 companies, and each one of them has had its own challenges. So from my experiences, simply, I want to share with you what has made an impact. And Eric has heard me speak before. So I love stories, and I wish to start off with a short story. But the first one that I want to bring up to you is something that I'm sure you've heard. The past few months have been interesting. They've been absolutely interesting times. And if you haven't seen this, you should know the Chinese word for crisis is Wei Ji. That's how you say it, Wei Ji. Wei meaning danger, and Ji meaning opportunity. The word for crisis in itself can be broken up into danger plus opportunity makes up a crisis. And that's what this is. And today's 90 minutes we want to spend, or 60 minutes we want to spend on discussing the opportunity that comes from any crisis, because it's above and beyond. And I know that you will see it. But in order to put it in perspective to us, I want to give us a story. And here's a story of one of my favorite stories. It's of a gambler. And once upon a time, there was this gambler. And this actually taught me the greatest lesson in my life. And I'm sure it will to you. So there was this gambler, and he was a great guy, but unfortunately, he passed away. He loved to gamble, and he lived a full life, and he passed away. Now, he did not know that he had died, but when he woke up in his afterlife, he woke up and he opened his eyes, and he finds himself in this beautiful stretch limousine. So he looks around and he's like, oh my God, this is awesome. He's in this beautiful car. He looks to the left and he sees 2 bottles of champagne. One of them's opened up. The bubbles are coming out, and he's excited. He's like, my God, I don't know where I am, but this is awesome. He looks across to the other side of the limo, and he sees 4 of the most gorgeous women he has ever seen in his life. And he's like, wow, this is a party, and they're dressed in the most beautiful clothes, and he's excited. He's like, I wonder where I am. So he opens up his window and he looks outside, and he finds himself bang in the middle of Las Vegas, his favorite city in the world, outside his favorite casino, the Bellagio. And he comes outside, and as he comes outside with a champagne bottle in one hand, 4 women on another, and he walks into the casino. And as he's going into the casino, he heads straight to his favorite game, which is blackjack. He loves to gamble, and he loves blackjack. So he goes towards the table, and he says, oh my God, I don't know if I have any money. So he picks out, he checks his pockets, and turns out he has hundreds and thousands of dollars in cash, or euros in cash. So he takes out the money, goes to the table, and buys his chips. And his first bet is for 100,000 euros, single bet. And guess what happens? Blackjack, he wins. His second bet for another $100,000, 100,000 euros. Blackjack, he wins. Third bet, he wins. 10th bet, he wins. 50th bet, he wins. 100th bet, he wins. 400th bet, he wins. 499th bet, he wins. And 500th bet, when he bets it and he wins again, blackjack, he looks up at God and says, oh my God, is this heaven? Is this heaven? And God looks down at him and says, no, son, this is hell. This is hell. And some of you, I see you smile, but let me, the depth of this is crazy, because if I came here to tell you a story about a guy that went to heaven, or that woke up in a limo, had everything he ever wanted and kept winning, you would say, Yash, never invite Yash again. That's the worst story I've ever heard. Because the greatest lesson of my life was that a story is only as good as the challenges that are faced in it. But in this story, I mean, if you don't believe me, tell me, if you were reading a book, and you're on chapter 1 and nothing bad happens in chapter 1, nothing bad happens. Tell me, would you go to chapter 2? Guys, chat box. You're reading a book, nothing bad happens. Will you go to chapter 2? Let's say you don't read, except Dominique and Wim van der Lippe. Yeah, probably not, it's correct. But let's say you don't read. Let's say you're watching Netflix. Let's say you're watching Netflix, you're watching a show, and nobody dies in the first episode. Do you watch that show? Absolutely not. Have you seen the Game of Thrones? You got to die every second. Some main person's dying, and you love the show. It's one of the greatest watched shows, because a story is only as good as the challenges that are faced in it. And we came into this world for drama. It's a funny thing. We came in this world for drama, and we get too much of it. We say, oh my God, my life is full of drama. I don't like my life. There's too much happening. And if nothing's happening, you say, oh my God, my life is boring. Because here's a question to all of us. Tell me, do you guys like surprises? You like surprises? Danielle, Jerry, do you guys like surprises? Yes? No, nonsense. You guys are lying to me, because the ones you like, the things you like, you call them surprises. The things you don't like, you call problems. Yes or no? The ones you like, oh, surprise. The ones you don't like, oh my God, problem. But a surprise is a surprise. It's things you didn't know or were unexpected. Because the greatest gift, according to me, the greatest gift that one can ever get, because I've studied billionaires. I've had the luck of spending time with friends of mine who are extremely, extremely successful. And the greatest gift that each one has had is a massive challenge. I mean, you look at Sylvester Stallone or Oprah Winfrey or Tony Robbins or anyone else who's ever made it, they've had a massive challenge. And a story is only as good as the challenges that are faced in it. Because tell me, would the Avengers be a good movie if Thanos was a useless villain? Absolutely not. There'd be a bunch of, a guy, green-colored guy who's very strong, and a dude in like iron suits running around doing nothing. But the Avengers was a great movie because Thanos was a great villain. And today, I think we have all been given the gift of the pandemic. We've been given the gift of coronavirus, because now we have the chance to be the Avengers. And the question I have for you is, who are you going to be? Are you going to be the Hulk? Are you going to be Doctor Strange? Are you going to be Spider-Man? Are you going to be Iron Man? Whoever. Because without Thanos, there is no Avengers. There is no Avengers. And now we have the Thanos, and we're crying about it. Because I've had these questions come about, several times, saying, Yash, in the middle of all of this crisis, you're talking about all this inspiration, motivational stuff. Like, really, does that work? I don't know. Let me show you. Right? So I come from, in India, I have 3 regions of BNI. And I don't know the brief that Yash gave you before, but, we're doing well, and I'll share with you what we've done. But my city is called Ahmedabad, where I live. And my neighboring city is called Baroda. And I want to show you what has happened over the past 80 days. 80 days, India has been in lockdown for 60 days, like absolute lockdown, meaning we could not leave our homes. We could not step outside, otherwise the police would beat you. Okay, it was that bad. And everyone's been in their homes. People were discussing what BNI would do. How do we really do this now more than ever? Here's what happened in the past 80 days. We've had 1,792 visitors log in to our BNI online meetings. We've had 318 members added. We passed 2,440 referrals with a renewal percentage of 93.4% and a total thank you for closed business at 24.2 million euros. Not Indian rupees, euros. That mind-blowing? It blew my mind, because when I took out these figures today for you guys, I wasn't even looking at them. And when I saw them, I said, we've done 24.2 million euros of business in the lockdown, and we're crying about it. It's unbelievable, because the kind of opportunity that came out of this reminds me that not every, but most billionaires were made during a recession. I don't know one rich guy that made it when the market was going up. Everyone made it when the market was at the bottom. You know, as a business person, that's how I'm looking. And here's a line that I don't quote very commonly, but I will to you, is, they say this in politics a lot, is never, ever let a good crisis go to waste. Never let a good crisis go to waste. And this has been one of those situations, because look at these figures. Look at these figures, and it's mind-blowing. Now, this makes sense. So tell me, you know, have you enjoyed the experience of BNI Online? All of you as directors? Yes, no, maybe? Enjoyed the experience? Yeah? Okay. Because in the process of enjoying, yeah, yes and no, Jerry, yeah, that's a fair answer. Because if I ask any of you, you know, knowing the Dutch people, I have a lot of close friends that are Dutch, and I feel, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we're people who like people. Like, I know the Dutch, like, you like to hug someone, shake someone's hand. That's what we like to do. But unfortunately, we cannot do it right now. We cannot. We cannot, for our safety, our parents' safety, our loved ones' safety. We cannot do it. And even in those times, we've been able to make this. So, yeah, absolutely, right? So at least it was possible. At least this business happened. Because without us, this wouldn't work out. And we wouldn't look the same. And that's why now more than ever, this is needed. And hence I want to break why I call this presentation the C's, and only the C's. Yash doesn't know I changed the title, is because I'm going to talk to you just simply about lessons from starting from the word C starting from the letter C over and over and over again. And the first one I want to talk to us about is the 3 C's of leadership. Like, a lot of times people come to me and they ask me, Yash, what is the, you know, if you had to, like, if I'm doing an interview for a magazine or speaking to BNI members, they'll say, Yash, what's the one thing that, what is the recipe for great leadership? What's the one recipe for great leadership? Or what are the 3 things that define leadership? And here's my answer to all of us as directors of BNI specifically. I think there are 3 key C's that make it up. The first one is clarity. Clarity beyond anything else. And before I talk about clarity, I have a question to all of you. Are you all extremely clear about what's going to happen, what the world is going to look like, when we're going to find a vaccine, what the markets are going to look like, what BNI is going to do? Are you all clear about what's going to happen? 100%? No, Leo is correct. No, we're not. No, we're not. And hence I'm going to tell you, I never promote lying, but I want to tell you as a leader, the illusion of clarity is just as powerful as clarity. Because I can be as confused as I want, but when I'm talking to you, I'm going to talk with absolute clarity, at least for what I believe to be the truth. Because right now, when I look at the world around me and I've spoken to my assistant was just sharing with me the math. I've spoken to over 18,000 people over the past 45 days. 18,000. And each person usually is in the business world. These are the kind of people that bring me in. And in the business world, because I'm not a speaker, I'm not a trainer, I'm a business person who likes to talk to people. And as someone who's in that world, with everyone I've spoken to, this question has come about. The question about, you know, not knowing what's going to happen and how we're going to deal with the situation. So the illusion of clarity is sometimes more important than we know it, because I don't know if the context will make a lot of sense to you, but have you guys heard of a book called the Gita? The Gita, right? You have M-A, I don't know, am I supposed to call you M-A or Van der Oer? So no, okay. It's the ancient book, like the Bible for the Hindus, and out of which there is a section called the Mahabharata, which is this massive war. And during this war, right, one of the warriors, he goes on the battlefield, and he's the greatest warrior that ever existed, according to the story, right? The greatest warrior that ever existed. And he goes on the battlefield with Lord Krishna, who's one of the gods in the mythology, and he's going onto the battlefield with this god as his charioteer. And the first people he's introduced to on the battlefield is his family members, like distant cousins. And this guy, who's the greatest warrior, is expected, his name is Arjun, he's expected to be overconfident. He's expected to, be absolutely not be afraid, because he's the most skilled warrior that ever existed according to the book. But when he goes on that battlefield, is introduced to his cousins, the first thing he does is looks at the god, the charioteer, and says, hey, look, I don't want to fight. I can't do this. I don't want to fight. And when he says that, there's entire verses and verses written, which is called the Gita. And these verses, I don't want to talk about the verses, but what I want to talk about is the greatest warrior looks at the man and says, I don't want to fight, not because he had lost his skill. He was still the most skilled man on the battlefield. But he said, I don't want to fight because he had lost his will. He lost his will. You see what I'm saying is the coronavirus is not a test of our skill, or BNI most of the times, just in general, without the pandemic, is not a test of our skill, but is a test of our will. And if we're able to keep our will high, we're able to communicate with clarity where we want to go, we're able to get there. Because if you ask me, Yash, what is the one role of a BNI director? I think the one role of a BNI director is to interpret the world around him or her and translate it in a language that the members understand. That's our role. Our role is to interpret the world around us and tell them in a way that they get it. And hence clarity is one of, I think, the top thing that I find in leadership. The second one is communication. And this one, I mean, if you know anything about me, you'd know that it's my favorite, because communication. Constant communication is the key. And we just launched a chapter yesterday, so let me tell you that story. We launched a chapter yesterday. I don't know, Yash, if you saw the Facebook post, but we launched a chapter called BNI Poseidon in my city. This chapter launched with 51 members, and it is the world's second largest launch and India's largest launch in the history of BNI Online. And the question was, how the hell did you do it? How? And the answer is, well, we communicate over and over. How many times a day? 1 time, no. 2 times, no. 10 times, no. 1,000 times. Over and over and over and again and again and again. And that was the only way, because communication builds culture. Language builds culture. And I'm going to touch upon that as we get to it. But the third skill, and as I already talked about that, saying it, we did it 1,000 times, is consistency. So the 3 C's put together are clarity. Thank you, Joy. So clarity, communication, and consistency are the 3 C's that I think make great leadership. And coming to the BNI world as executive directors, as director consultants, as national directors, whatever, if these 3 C's are put in tandem, you as a leader are going to feel satisfied with what you're doing. You're going to find value in what's happening, because a lot of times we end up celebrating the numbers, right? Like, oh, we launched a chapter with 51 members. Great. We did 24 million euros in business. But the only thought that comes to my mind whenever I look at success is, who did I become while earning that success? Who did I become? Who did I turn into? Because the saddest thing in the world is the richest man in the graveyard, right? You've heard this before. The saddest thing in the world is the richest man in the graveyard. And I see a lot of people in the quest of leading become worse individuals than they were before. But if we're clear about what we want to do, we're able to communicate it well, and we do it consistently over and over and over, you have the answer. Because we have some great BNI knowledge. And I know, knowing Yash and knowing the Dutch team, the Belgian team, you guys have really I mean, you have some of the best people in the world. BNI in the Netherlands and Flemish Belgium goes out to the rest of the world to train them. You don't need me to tell you how BNI works, but I want to just tell you as a leader what works with the information that we get from BNI. And hence these 3 C's, because um, in the quest of doing all of these, I had a call from I get on these Friday calls with my directors. And in one of my cities, I have a director consultant team of 142 directors, right? Now that's a lot of DCs. And we get on a call on the first Friday of every month. And you know, when we're not in the lockdown, we actually meet physically. Whoever can come, I call it the Director Pizza Friday. We meet on the first Friday of every month and we eat pizza and we go home. That's it. There's no BNI discussion. There's no way we discuss how to make a chapter better, but we just meet. Because look around you. There's 75 people on this call. And my question to you is, I'm sure you all know each other, right? I know that you know each other. But when was the last time you scheduled a one-to-one for your business with one person on this team? When was the last time you shared your gains profile with someone on the director team? And I don't know what the answer is for you, but I'm assuming not very often. Because this is a chapter of 75 people. And these are the best of the best. And to me, I took up this call in the middle of all of the work that we're up to because, great. So some people have been doing it. But I took up this call because you are the best of BNI in the Netherlands and Flemish Belgium. That's awesome because you've been filtered through and now you've taken the time to give me the respect to come and sit here. Hence, I have to give you everything that I have because according to me, you, me, Yash, every leader in the world has one role. And I am assuming some of you have heard this story before, but this is one of my absolute favorites because it defines what our role is to me so clearly. And here's our role according to me. So has anyone been to Japan? Any one of you been to Japan ever? Yes, no? Chat box, someone has. Someone from BNI HQ, I see. No, yeah, Eric has. Okay, Eric's been everywhere. Eric, do you still have that bus?
That's not me, that's Jan.
Oh, that's Jan, okay. God damn, confused. Yeah, so Eric's been everywhere. Minka, is that correct? Or Minka. Is it Minka or Minsa?
Minka,
okay, correct. So those of you who've been to Japan or those who have not, you'll know that Japan is a very spectacular country, but this is a true story from there, where back in the day, I think about 30, 35 years ago, maybe 40 years ago, the Japanese till today, they love to eat sushi. They love fish and they love to eat all kinds of fish, especially in the coastal belt, which is almost all of Japan. So the Japanese loved fish so much that there was a time when they overfished to the extent that all the waters around Japan, around the mainland, were dry. There was no fish to be found anywhere, right? They just ran dry and there was no more fish. So they all came together, all the fishermen, and they said, hey, look, what do we do? And they decided that the only thing we can do is start going deeper into the ocean to find fish, right? So they got in their boats and they went deeper and they caught a bunch of fish. They found it. They put it in the boat and they came back and they put it out in the fish market. And when they put it out in the fish market, all the customers, the Japanese customers, hated it. They said, oh my God, it's taken so long for you to come back from, in the middle of the ocean to come back to the market that the fish is stale. It's rotten. It's disgusting. We can't eat this fish. So they said, okay, now we have a problem. What do we do? So all of them came together and they said, you know what? We're going to use ice. And we're going to put ice in our boats and go out into the ocean, catch fish, put it on ice and bring it back. And that's exactly what they did. But guess what? When they brought the fish on ice back, put it on the market, the customer said, no, this is horrible. This is frozen fish. We want fresh fish. We don't want frozen fish. So we can't eat this. And no one bought. And the entire market was like, it was a big deal in Japan. This is a big industry. So people are freaking out. They said, what do we do now? They said, well, okay, I think we have an idea. And one of them came up with an idea that they're going to retrofit all their boats and they're going to install the boats with large chambers like aquariums and catch the fish, put them in the aquariums, bring them back alive, and then take them in the market. So they went out, caught the fish, put it in the tanks, brought them back, and they jammed the aquariums, right? Because you catch so many fish. They put it out in the market and they thought people will like it. But guess what? They hated this fish more than anything else because the fish was so sluggish. Like they were sitting in the water for so long, like not moving, that they just become messy. They weren't fish that the Japanese consumers would buy. And now they had a problem because they were out of ideas. They said, well, we can't put them on ice. We can't bring them in containers, like in aquariums. How the hell do we feed the population? So all of the people got together and they went to this one wise old man, I guess. And they said, well, we have this problem. What do we do? And he gave them a solution. And the solution he gave them was go out into the ocean, catch the fish, put them in the aquariums like you did. But this time, add a little shark in the tanks. Add a little shark in the tanks. And when they added the shark in the tanks and they came back to the market, this was the best fish they had ever had because the shark was chasing all the fish and they were so active in those aquariums that that fish was, you know, very fresh, I guess, extremely, extremely fresh. So every time they transport fish, they will put a little shark in it. And you know who you are? You're a shark. I know some of you are thinking, well, no, I'm not a shark. I don't like to eat people. But get the metaphor. We're a shark because whenever a leader, like when I'm trying to hire someone for a chapter or when I'm trying to recruit a director consultant or an area director or for other franchise I own, if I'm looking for a sub-franchise, I'm looking for someone who can play the part of a shark. Because when the shark enters the pool, all the other fish scatter. They start running. They start running because we're in the funniest business, I think, that's on the planet. And let me qualify that, right? Today, what's your role as DC or ED or whatever, as BNI directors? Our role is to go to a chapter, to spend hours and hours on the phone or on Zoom or in person, talking to business people about how they should be more motivated, doing their business, making more money and not giving us any of that money. Isn't that the craziest business in the world? Think about it. Like you go somewhere, you motivate them to grow their business and we don't get a cut out of it. It's unbelievable. And we still do it. We do it day in and day out and we do it with all the passion in the world because we are the goddamn shark. We're the people that make sure people are moving around doing what's good for them. Because one question that begs me as a human being is tell me, guys, how many of you, and I know you're Dutch, I know your answer, is tell me how many of you want like a super sexy body, like a brilliantly awesome body? How many of you want it? Except Dave. Okay, Dave doesn't want one. Cole, how many of you want like a really good looking body? No, you want one. You want one. Glenn already has it. I'm going to make him strip after this, but everyone else, yeah, he does. Jerry does. You want like a six-pack, great-looking body. Girls want a flat belly. I mean, super sexy. The answer is everyone wants it, even if you're not telling me. Everyone wants it. And the only question is, then why don't we? You want it, then why don't we? And the answer to this question, like what 12-pack is also nice. Absolutely. I'm assuming we're talking about beer, but no, you're not. I don't think anyone's too old or too young for this, but the reason we don't have it is not because of the lack of knowledge, right? I'm sure you agree. How do you get a great body? Well, you eat the right food and you work out, you do it, you do it in September and you do it in January, you do it in the rain and you do it in the summer, you do it when it's snowing and you do it when it's pouring, but you keep doing it over and over consistently for so many years. And if you do it, you will have a great body. Absolutely. Workout, but consistently, again and again and again. And you miss out a year and you go back to where you were. It's just how it is. So it's not the lack of knowledge. You know how to do it. We want it. Then why don't we have it? And the answer is because unfortunately or fortunately, however you look at it, for me, everything's positive. So fortunately, we as human beings follow a natural sense of latency, right? So my specialization is in behavioral psychology. I studied neuroscience, and we follow a natural state of inertia That means until we get a kick in the butt, we don't want to move forward and get what we want. Because I challenge you to do an education slot in your chapters. Go into your chapter and say, okay, guys, how many of you want to make a lot more money than you already do? And everyone's going to say, me, 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 me. Okay, the question is, okay, then why don't you? Why don't you? It's not because you don't know how. Of course you know how. You know how to do it. The recipe is simple. Success is like the worst mystery novel in the world. It leaves so many clues. All you have to do is pick up the crumbs, follow people that have done it, just copy, and you're going to get there. But we are still unable to do it because we follow a natural sense of inertia. Why should I do 2 1-to-1s? I want to do just one. Why should I pick up the phone and say thank you? And why should I qualify a referral? And why should I come on time? And all of these questions and all of these things that people go through is a reason they don't achieve what they want. But when you plug yourself in, remember, your role is to make sure that people do what they're uncomfortable doing. Because, you know, I ask myself often, what is the most scarce resource in the world? Tell me, guys, what do you think, actually? This is a great question. What do you think is the most scarce resource in the world? Time, peace. By the way, when you say time, this is just, I'm going on a tangent, but sometimes I wonder, people say that time passes by. But sometimes I feel like time stays there and we pass by. Crazy, huh? I don't really necessarily believe that. I feel like time stays and we just kind of move away from it, right? It's like a child who graduates from school and the school still remains, but the person graduates and moves on and never looks back at it. But anyway, so not time. I don't think time is scarce because I think we have more time than you and I think. We have, if you break down your life, you have so many minutes, it's mind blowing. There's a lot of minutes in our life and a lot more to go. People, silence, attention. Yeah, attention nowadays. Health, commitment. Okay, so here's what I think. I think Tirja is from Fit 20. I love your company. You guys do some great work. And Neri is a dear friend of mine. I know he's a part of it. I'm in BNI thanks to Neri. So if you guys know him, do thank him from my side. So anyway, so I think the most scarce resource in the world is leadership. Well, sorry. The most scarce resource in the world is resourcefulness is scarce. But if you talk resources, and the most scarce resource is leadership. Think about it. People are dying. People are looking up, down, square, center, everywhere for someone to lead them, someone to follow. Leadership is scarce. And you know why leadership is scarce? Because by definition, leadership is uncomfortable. And I want to thank you as directors of BNI in Europe because what you're doing is uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to be the guy that stands up and questions the status quo. It's uncomfortable to be the person that speaks to an audience when no one wants to listen. It's uncomfortable to be the person that sometimes takes a tough decision when it's not the popular decision. It's uncomfortable to be the person that says, sorry, we have to kick you out because you're not performing to his best friend or number one client. It's uncomfortable to be a leader. And because it's uncomfortable, it's so scarce, but you're doing something that's uncomfortable, which makes me just say, hey, thanks. But know why it's scarce. Because when we try to build an organization, the question is, what's our job as directors? Like, Yash, okay, great. All of this is good. But what's our job as directors? What should we do? Let's say you're an executive director. So then you're talking about your region. Let's say you're a director consultant and you're talking about one chapter, or let's say a few chapters, but let's say one chapter. Okay. In each case, you're trying to lead a group of individuals. It could be 20, it could be 200, it could be 20,000. But when you're trying to lead a group of individuals, I think there are only three things according to me that make a great organization. I know you've heard of process, people, passion, and all of these, but these 3 C's are my C's, which I think make up how we run or how a great organization functions. And the 3 C's, The 3 C's are community, competition, and celebration. Community, competition, and celebration. And and I want you to look back for a second, like take 5 seconds and look back at what you've been doing in BNI over the past whatever years you've been in BNI. And literally all we're doing is we're building community, and we keep talking about the community now more than ever, support each other, great. Second, we're competing with each other. Oh my God, this chapter is 50 members, mine's 45, let's get there. Oh, this country is doing so well, let's do this. He's in the green, he's in the red, he's in the amber. World traffic light, chapter traffic light, member traffic light, we're competing. And third is we're celebrating. And we're celebrating every small and big victory. We're celebrating everything that comes about. But as we approach this big goal of community, competition, and celebration, which are the 3 C's that build a great organization. By the way, in your companies, take these 3 C's and plug them in. I promise you, you're going to see the most beautiful result. If you aren't doing it, do it. There are things that you do in BNI, but you don't do in your business. That's silly. Take it and implement it, because you are the masters of it. And I don't know how many do, but I know not everyone does. So while we approach this big goal, on a chapter level, on a member level, we have 3 primary roles. And these 3 roles, we have 1 primary role, and that role is to change people's state. That's our job. Like if you ask me, Yash, what's your job? My job is to change people's state all the time. That's all I'm doing. And a question for you guys, if you've heard, I've heard Tony Robbins say this and other people talk about this, is can you tell me how long does it take? So, okay, let's start from the top. Do you think, all of you, do you think that there is such a thing as a sad individual or an angry person or a happy person or a complaining person or a lustful person or a party person? Do you think that people are categorized in this way? Do you think that people can be either sad or angry or whatever? What do you think? There's a no. Okay. Marjan, no. Pierre, no. Correct. Yeah. There's no, so you guys are all right. No one person is either, I'm not a sad person or an excited person or an ambitious person. I just am in a certain state at that point in time. Does that make sense, everyone? Yes? So right now, I'm in a state where I'm in an excited state because I'm talking to you and I love doing this. There's nothing I would rather be doing in the world than talking to you right now. That's why I'm possibly, and I know I'm going to be effective because I love it. There's no way you can go wrong with it. You've given me the respect of listening to me for 90 minutes. That's more respect than most people get in the world. So my job is to give you everything. That's how my brain works. But at this point in time, right? So we're acting in the state that we are in. So you're either in an angry state or a lustful state or a fun state, ambitious state, excited state. We're in different states. And how quickly do states change? How quickly? Yeah, awesome, like that, right? States change instantly. Now, please note that every individual is in a state. Similarly, every organization is in a state. Similarly, every city, state, and country is in a state. And if you go to my website, right, and I urge you to do it, if you go to yashvasant.com, you will see the first quote that comes up says, "No guns ever changed the world. It was always a man with, or it was always a person with a microphone." No guns ever changed the world. It was always a person with a microphone, because the ability that you and I have to communicate is the ability to change a group's state. And that's all we're doing. And if you ask me, Yash, where does massive success come from in BNI? Massive success comes from the ability to change the state of the people or the organization or the chapter or whatever team that you are leading. So let's see how we change states. The 3 things that impact state: physiology, focus, and language. Physiology, focus, and language. Now, and these are basic to some. There's some of you who read a lot or have heard this. For some of you, it's going to be new, but I'm going to break it up in the interest of time because I do want to leave time for Q&A. I'm going to break them up real quick. Because physiology is simple, right? Physiology is when physiology is when your body, the way you are, the way your posture is, your movements have a direct impact on your emotion. Have a direct impact on your emotion. So if you're sitting in a Zoom call on BNI Online, you're lying down on your bed and I'm talking to you like this, like no one's going to like it because your physiology is impacting your audience and the audience's physiology is impacting you. But your physiology above all is impacting your state. Like when someone is depressed, what do they look like? Are the shoulders broad, wide, and chest open, or is it depressed? Shoulders broad or narrow? Narrow. Tall or slouched? Slouched. You know, are you talking in a high pitch or a low pitch? Low pitch. Right? You guys know the answer. Everyone knows the answer. You don't need to be like behavioral psychologists to know this because you know what a poor state looks like. Now, my only thing is if you reverse it, you can have a crazy impact. You can have an insane impact on someone just by changing your physiology. And to drive the point home more, I want you to write down a quote. Please do write this down. It's important. Is motion leads to emotion. Motion leads to emotion. For example, right? Let's say Kim. Let's say you're very sad. You're crying. I hope you never cry, but let's say you're sad and you're crying. And someone plays your favorite music. What happens? What happens when your music is playing?
I will be smiling.
Yeah, no, well, you don't immediately smile. You're crying, the music plays, your head starts doing this. Your head starts moving, your hip starts moving, your feet start tapping. And as soon as there's motion generated, like when we played that song in the beginning, Ek Fusik Sexy Osik Dance or whatever that is, when we played that song, your head started moving, your feet started tapping, and all of a sudden emotion changed because state changes like that. And all of a sudden Kim can go from being sad to being super excited just by moving. Have you ever seen a sad or a person who is dancing be sad? Never. Like, yeah, they can be very happy and they're crying tears, but no one's like sad and dancing. It doesn't happen. Okay. The second one is focus. And focus is extremely critical from a BNI standpoint because, sure, Wim, sure, I get that. But you know, when focus is extremely critical in a BNI chapter, because I know that you've noticed this, where one negative person in your chapter or your team can destroy the entire environment. Right? Like everyone's excited, everyone's happy, but this one guy or one girl really pulls down the energy of everyone because he or she is able to change the focus of what they're looking at. If you're looking for how BNI Online sucks, you are going to find reasons as to why BNI Online sucks. And if you're going to look at reasons as to why BNI Online is cool, because first of all, your BNI membership is discounted by 70%. You know why? Because you're not paying your hotel fees. How much do you guys pay in the Netherlands? What, 10, 15 euros a meeting? At least, right? Now 10, 15 euros, let's say 10 multiplied by 4 is 40 euros. It's about 500 euros discount a year. And your membership fee is 1,000 euros. That's a 50% discount. That's insane. Have you ever thought about it like that? Well, we got a bunch of members because I said the membership is discounted by $500. People said, oh, that's great. But the point every focus on will generate an emotion. And I don't want to go on too much of a tangent. Maybe another talk, Yash, and I can talk to you about how emotion is generated really. And the third one is language, which I think is more important to me. And if you ask me, the one most important thing over this entire call is language. Now, what I mean by language is not English, Chinese, Japanese, French, or Dutch. I'm talking about the words that come out of our mouth. Right? For example, if I tell you, like I got a call from someone and I said, oh, how's BNI going? and he's on a Zoom call with me, and he says, well, Yash, it's a disaster. I said, oh no, really? Like, did something happen? Your family died and your house collapsed and everything blew up and your life is a complete mess? He says, no, no, no. I said, well, that's a disaster. Tell me what really happened. He said, well, you know, I had received this referral and it was my dream referral. And I got in touch with the guy and they asked me to wait for 2 months. I said, that's a disaster. What if you said the same thing? Is like, how's BNI doing? Well, you know, let's say he said, it could be better, or it's going good as opposed to outstanding, right? The words we use create emotion, and as directors, we don't even know the impact we're having every single conversation that we're doing with them. For example, the chapter that launched with 51 members had no idea that what they were doing is not normal, because they were told that the minimum standard is 51 members. How do they know? How do they know? You know, we hold the world record. we hold the world record of launching 4 chapters in 4 days. I don't know if Yash told you that. But 7 years ago, when I came into BNI, we launched 4 chapters in 4 days, which is still the world record. Okay. And someone asked me in a meeting, they said, Yash, how did you do that? Well, I said, no one told me that that's not how it works. I thought that's what everyone does. I really thought that everyone just launches 4 chapters in 4 days. But then they told me that the minimum is 4 chapters in 2 years. I said, oh crap, now I know. But because I didn't know better. And language builds culture. Language builds culture. You know, I play the bamboo flute. If anyone of you have ever heard it, I played it for 25 years now. And I had this great mentor, and I've been very lucky in my life, guys. I'm a really blessed person because I've had the greatest mentors for anything that I ever did. In BNI, I had someone like Neri and other great people. And for my music, I had this guy. He was 80 years old, and he trained me for about 16 years. Yeah, he passed away when he was 96 last year, which is a very sad void in my life. But anyways, when I went to him, he's this old guy. He's been playing for like 50 years and brilliant, very cute fellow. And when we would have discussions, I asked him once, I said, sir, you know, we were talking about what music is. And, you know, if you play music, you know, C, D, E, F, G, like these are the notes. And I said, so C, D, E, F, G, that's music? And he said, no, Yash, that's not. I said, then what is music? He said, Yash, music is the silence between a C and a D. Music is the silence between 2 notes. And I think culture, very similarly, is built between the question asked to you and the answer that you give. That moment between is culture. Because every word that came out of our mouth has always built culture in a way that you never knew it. Because people have all these long drawn theories about what we do in BNI. You know, I think we complicate BNI around the world. I mean, we take 50 good people, we put them in a room, they do business together. Simple, end of story. I don't know why we need to complicate this way too much, but we do. But the simplicity of the fact is if they're in a chapter, they're making money, they're going to invite more people, the chapters are going to get bigger, and life is great. Isn't it? Like, this is it. I don't know why we do any work at all. And I feel like that sometimes. Because when there's one word which I want to share with you, and when that one word is achieved, everything tips over. Everything tips over to your side. So to wrap this up, there is one goal that I feel I have with my members, talking specifically about BNI right now. And to give you the larger picture, you know, I love animals, right? So I spend time in Africa a bunch, and I spend time scuba diving around the world. And there's so many stories I could tell you, but one of the things that always bothered me was, what's the difference between a good organization and a great organization? What's the difference between a good BNI region and an outstanding BNI region? Like, what's the one thing that makes the difference between an average man and an extraordinary man? What's the one thing? And I looked around the world, like I looked everywhere and I was seeking for the answers, and I never found it. I spoke to people, I interviewed people, read books, nowhere, until one time when I was in the middle of the African plains and in the savannah, and I found the answer through the animals. And I want to ask you guys, can you tell me if an elephant is a strong animal? Do you think an elephant is a powerful animal? Jules? Yeah, absolutely. Leo, thanks. Paul, an elephant, if you've never seen one, please do see one, but it's a strong animal. An elephant can kill anything that comes in its way simply by putting its foot on it. It doesn't even need to fight. An elephant is one of the strongest animals that ever existed. But tell me, is the elephant the king of the jungle? No. No. Who is the king of the jungle? The lion. Can someone tell me why? Why is the elephant not the king of the jungle and the lion is the king of the jungle? No, it's not the best hunter. Yeah, it sleeps a lot. I mean, why the lion? And the answer lies in what we call, does anyone know what we call a group of lions? What do we call a group of lions? Anyone? What's a group of lions called? Eric? No, not a pack, not a bunch. Come on. It's a pack of wolves. What do you call a group of lions? No?
No clue.
Okay. Well, a group of lions is called a pride of lions. And a lion is the king of the jungle and not an elephant, because when even a little crappy little lion roars, it roars with pride, and not one, but 100 elephants run. 100 elephants run when a lion roars with pride. And pride is the one element, when instilled in an individual, makes him extraordinary, makes her extraordinary. Pride is the one element, when instilled in an organization, makes it extraordinary. When instilled in a country, makes it extraordinary. And pride is the only thing that we need to instill amongst us. Because the question is, let's say if you're not proud of your cooking, do you invite someone home for dinner? If you're not proud of the way your office looks, do you invite people to your office for a meeting? If you're not proud of your BNI members, are you going to invite a visitor, a guest? And that's it. You have the answer. When I go to my chapters and I'm talking to my members, I'm asking them, and I'm not telling them to be proud. I'm making sure we do the things that makes them feel proud. And my question to you is, as directors of BNI in the Netherlands and Belgium, are you proud? Are you proud of what you're doing? Yes. Yes, absolutely. And pride feels a certain way. You can smell pride from a mile away. Pride is not arrogance, mind you. There's a thin line between pride and arrogance. And pride is a magical thing when you're able to build it amongst a team. And that's our goal. As I told you, community, competition, and celebration. But while we're instilling pride and while we're doing what we're doing, I want to give you one final lesson through one of my favorite stories, which is now famous. I know many people quote the story in different regions. I don't know, Eric, if you've heard it, but for all of you, I want to tell you the story, and then we can wrap up and take questions, because bang, 1 hour. And I love to be on time is one of my very weird things which Indian people don't usually do. So here we go. Once upon a, has anyone, by the way, have you guys heard about, you guys heard of Al Capone? This guy? Anyone? Tell me, yes, no, Carolyn? You've heard of Al Capone? Okay. Now Al Capone is a legend, but he was a bad person. He was a gangster. Now Al Capone used to rule the Prohibition era on the East Coast and the Middle East, the Midwest of the United States. And Al Capone actually came to power in the late 1800s when alcohol was banned, and he started selling moonshine and all this. And he's famous not because he had so much power. Yeah, he started off in Chicago, and he's not famous because he had so much power. Al Capone is known because he had power for a long time. Usually these guys die soon. Now Al Capone, slowly as he grew, he had control over everything. He controlled the gambling, the racketeering, the corrupt politicians, the alcohol, the prostitution. Everything was in Al Capone's control. And Al Capone credits all of his great laurels to his one friend, confidant, and his lawyer, whose name was Easy Eddie. Now, Easy Eddie is an extraordinary story in itself, but Easy Eddie was his lawyer and his most trusted friend, and he knew everything there was to know about Al Capone. He knew where all the money was. He knew who the corrupt people were. He knew who was being paid off. Easy Eddie knew everything, the closest man. And Easy Eddie, for his loyalty, was rewarded generously by Al Capone. And Easy Eddie, I mean, generously meaning generously. For example, he had all the cars in the world, all the money in the world, all the women in the world. His home was what Chicago's like town center is now, right? So he had everything he wanted, and he also had a young son. He had a young son. And one of the things that always bothered Easy Eddie was that he always knew that he was never able, he could give his son everything, but he would never be able to give his son a good culture, a good last name, a good example to follow. And Easy Eddie was so bothered by it that he knew there were two ways to tackle this. One was to go up to his son and say, hey son, don't be like me. I'm a bad man. You should be a good man. But he knew this wasn't going to work. So he knew the only way to make this happen was to go to his son and actually show his son that he had changed. And he did just that. One fine morning, he woke up, went to the police station, and hence went they directly took him to the courts, and he gave up everything he had on Al Capone. He betrayed him. And he gave all the information, the papers, the numbers, the accounts, and everything to the government. And that, of course, led to the decline of Al Capone. But this was a very dangerous proposition. And 2 days later, after he made his testimony to the government, he was found shot dead with, I think, 70, 80 bullets in his body, sitting on the driver's seat of his car outside of a liquor store in Chicago. And when Easy Eddie was found dead by the cops, they found him with two things in his pocket. The first thing they found him with was a Christian medallion. So the Christian medallion. And the second thing they found him with was a poem, a letter that he, Easy Eddie, had written to his son. And the police took out the letter, and the letter turned out to be a poem. And I want to tell you what the poem said. If I remember correctly, the poem that Easy Eddie wrote said, "The clock of life is wound but once, and no man has the power to tell just when the clock will stop, at late or early hour. Now is the time you own. Live, love, toil with a will. Place no faith in time, because the clock may soon be still." That's what it said. First story. But I do want to tell you a more fun story. I want to tell you a story about the World War. And during World War II, there was this guy, a young American recruit. He was about 17 years old when he was recruited into the American Air Force, and he was serving on an aircraft carrier off the Gulf of Japan, right? And he was serving on this aircraft carrier, and every morning at 7:30 a.m., all of the pilots, all of the Air Force guys, the pilots would get in their jets, and they would go on and fly on what was called the squad run or a test run. They wanted to test their planes, make sure they're working. So one fine morning, all of them took off, and while they were flying around, as soon as they took off, in about 2 minutes, this guy, his name was Butch, Butch realized that there was no gas. Someone had forgotten to put jet fuel in his plane. So Butch knew that, well, he couldn't take everyone back and he couldn't finish the run. So he turned around and he dropped out of formation, turned around, and he began his descent to land back on the aircraft carrier. When he was trying to land back, he looked up in the horizon. he looked up in the horizon, and when he looked up, he saw about 21 Japanese bombers coming straight at the now completely unarmed American aircraft carrier. And as he saw these coming in, and there was no way, I mean, what good is a plane when it's landed, right? So Butch did the only thing he had been taught his entire life to do. He couldn't go back and call his friends. He did the only thing he could, which is he went straight at the Japanese bombers. One man, 17-year-old boy against 21 Japanese bombers. He went straight at them, and with his wing-mounted machine gun started taking them down, and took down about 4 aircrafts until he ran out of bullets completely. He had no more ammo. Do you think he quit? Well, absolutely not. The guy was so crazy, he started nicking the other aircrafts with his plane and trying to damage them. And he did that so successfully that he took down another 4 aircrafts, and the remaining 11 or 10 aircrafts were so flabbergasted by what this young fighter pilot Butch had done, that they actually turned around and they fled, and Butch successfully landed alive and safe on the American aircraft carrier, to be celebrated as the greatest victor of that time. And Butch was, I mean, he was celebrated when he was alive, of course, but unfortunately Butch died at a very young age in aircraft battle a few years later. And Butch, because of his great valor and courage, was awarded by the greatest honor in the American Armed Forces, which is called the Medal of Honor, the Medal of Honor. And his full name was Butch. His full name was, one second, where did I go? His full name was Butch O'Hare. Butch O'Hare. Does anyone know what the airport in Chicago is called? It's called the O'Hare Airport. They named the entire airport after him. I mean, he is remembered today as the greatest child that was ever born from the city of Chicago. The airport is called the O'Hare Airport because of this one fighter pilot. And I don't tell you this story only because I love stories of victory and valor. I tell you this story because Butch O'Hare was Easy Eddie's son. Butch O'Hare was Easy Eddie's son. And this lesson is more priceless than anything else. Is in order to build the community we're building, in order to do what we're doing, it's not about telling them what to do, it's about showing them how you do it. Because culture is built in every word that we say, in every person that we touch, in every person that comes into our life. With, culture is built in every transaction that we do. And if we consistently are able to follow that practice, we will build a culture that is remarkable in the kind of things that you will get back from it. Will not just change everyone else's lives, but more importantly, will change yours. With that, I'm so grateful to be with all of you. I hope you enjoyed the lessons. Remember the C's. If you forget any, I will remind you of them. I didn't want to tell you too much about, well, thank you very much, Mr. Blum. I love you. And, I didn't want to get into like what to do with the traffic lights and all of this. But maybe when I'm there in person, we can do a more BNIS training. But thank you very much for having me. Yours, absolute pleasure. And you're an incredible leader. So thank you for the opportunity. Over to you.
Thank you, Jess, and we will continue with Q&A. Normally, I always try and summarize some things about the presentation we just listened to, but I'm not even going to start with that. I'm so glad we had you on this training and we took the opportunity to record it, because I'm for sure that and my phone keeps pinging and the chats keeps getting messages about all the positive reactions about your presentation. So thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. And I never got to tell them, like I was in the Netherlands last year. I had such a great time. I didn't have the opportunity to go around a lot, but I was living in Amsterdam and I went around with a few friends. And then I was in Belgium and I was in Antwerp for some time. I love your country. Absolutely. Your countries. It's my honor. I look forward to being there.
We're really looking forward to having you here rather sooner than later. So we'll get back to that. So it's time for questioning now. Just raise your virtual hand, and I will give you the opportunity to to ask a question to Yash.
Guys, I really look forward to good questions, so please do.
There we go, Eric, you're first.
Oh, I'm the first again. So Yash, thank you very much for your wonderful session. I'm sure Jos will agree that whatever you are charging, it is way too less. So Yash, can you recommend me a book that puts into good use whatever you're telling here? Because theory is very interesting, but I'm also a very practical guy.
Yeah, Eric, and also you're a dear friend and you're a great guy. So I know you read a bunch. So I'll tell you, I'm reading this book right now, which is very, very good. The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck. A brilliant book. But one of my all-time favorites, which I do recommend, especially you read, Eric, is a book called Anti-Fragile.
Anti-Fragile.
Anti-Fragile. And it talks about this concept, which I actually do want to share with all of you. Actually, you know what? Let me take this off. Okay, so I have all of you on my screen. Awesome. So this book talks about a concept which I love, especially in BNI. So let me share this with you. What is the opposite? Can you guys tell me, unmute or on the chat box? Tell me the opposite of negative. What's the opposite of negative? Like if negative is here, what's here? Chat box? Positive. Okay, easy enough. Yes. Easy enough. So what is the opposite of fragile?
Robust. Yeah,
that's what one would think, right? Eric, you want to translate that for me in Dutch? Maybe it's easier.
It's almost the same word in our language, robust.
Okay. So the opposite of fragile, you said robust. But let me come back to negative, right? You said the opposite of negative is positive. You didn't say the opposite of negative is neutral. So negative, neutral, positive, okay? So fragile, robust, anti-fragile, okay? Fragile, robust, anti-fragile. Because I have a question for you. What is the opposite? What is the opposite? By the way, in my regions, this is a mandatory requirement for every new member. Every new member. In the visitor orientation, in the new member induction process, I've actually put this as a part of the script. So you guys can do that too if you like it. Is what is the opposite of not getting business in BNI? Not getting business? What's on the other side? Yeah, so if, Jan, I love you. So John or Jan, however you say your name, but the question is, most people will say not getting business. The opposite is getting business. Not true. Not getting business, and giving business is the opposite of not getting business. So if someone asks me, what is the expectation setting that you should do with a new member that comes into your chapter? Because that's what impacts your retention. We have a 93% retention. Do you know how crazy that is? That's insane. That's insane. Like even for me, that's insane. And the reason that shift happened is because of the expectation setting. And I know that you've had other people from India come and tell you, and I love them all, but some of them will come and talk to you and say, the expectation in BNI should be that you're not going to get business for the first year, right? You've heard this, you've heard some people say this. I don't agree. The expectation is not that you're not going to get business. The expectation is that you must give business in the first year. Because if that's the expectation, worst comes to worst, someone else in the chapter is going to get business and you're going to build pride and people are going to come in. You want to generate something that creates a cycle, right? So fragile, anti-fragile, positive, negative, and not getting business, giving business. But in your lives, the book talks about how you can be anti-fragile. Because a lot of people, and it's funny, one of my, well, we used to date back in the day. She's Dutch. And she was just chatting with me 2 days ago. She taught me the word lekker ding. That's my favorite word in Dutch. But anyways, she, she was talking to me about something, and the idea is she was trying to be this really strong woman, like coming off as if everything is okay and the world is going to be fine. And I know that that's a recipe for a disaster in the making, and a real one, because it wasn't real. It was just this facade. Because the truth is, going from being fragile to acting robust is a whole different story if you're anti-fragile, where nothing can touch you, where you're above it. And I do this thing called Coffee with Your ED every Wednesday. So right before this call, I was doing this Zoom call with 300-400 members from my region. And they asked me a question about FOMO. Do you guys know that FOMO is an official disease? Have you heard of FOMO? Jan, do people know what FOMO is here? I don't.
The fear of missing out. What?
Yeah, awesome. The fear of missing out, right? It's a disease and it's insane. Everyone has this crazy fear, and you've attended like over, I don't know, 1 million seminars or 1 million webinars in the past few months or few days. You have so much knowledge coming to you, so much content that you're digesting. We constantly want to check our WhatsApp and our Facebook and social media, and we have this fear of missing out. What's happened? How many people have died from the coronavirus? How many people are infected? What are the ratios? Like which race is affected more? People have FOMO, and I was telling them about my thought process, where I think the level we want to get to is a level that I call COMO, C-O-M-O, COMO, and COMO. This is a word coined by me. By the way, Wim, you look like Richard Branson. Has anyone told you that? Sorry, I got distracted by his hair and his looks.
Well,
it's awesome.
You are the second person. They also said they look like Stanley Kretz, but I like more
Richard
Branson. Thank you very much.
Awesome. So, COMO is the courage of missing out. Where, no, I don't know. I don't know how many people died yesterday. I don't know. I don't want to know. Absolutely not. I don't know if, and sorry, I know you love football. I love it too when I watch the World Cup, but I really don't know what the exact percentage of wins and losses of each country has been. I don't care. I really don't care. That's a courage of missing out. But then there's a third stage. And the third stage is the stage that I call JOMO. JOMO, J-O-M-O. That is the joy of missing out. Oh, it's so awesome that I have no clue how many refugees pass through the border in some, I don't know. It's just great. I don't know. And it's a great feeling. And I usually live there, and some people criticize me for it, but here's my thing. What I know 100%. What I don't know, I don't know. I really don't know it. And I'm sorry I don't know it, but like I don't owe you anything. Why should I know it? I haven't taken any loans from anyone. I haven't done anything funny with anyone. My life's good. I don't need to know this stuff. And if you live in a JOMO state, especially right now, I think you're going to have a great time living it. You're going to have a great time living it. And I think it's, I don't know if that lesson helps you. I'm glad. I just went on a tangent. Thank you, Eric, for putting me on that. Any other questions? My God, where did we go from book to JOMO? Wow.
That was a great answer, Yash.
So who's next? Otherwise, I have two questions. So, but I don't want to take anyone else's spot. So,
See Teresa.
Sorry. Someone said something? No. Ines,
Hi.
no question.
Mag ik?
Hi.
Hi. I'm connecting to things you just said, your love for animals, and you just made a connection where you said motion leads to emotion. Did you ever hear of Chris Irwin, a famous horse trainer?
Yes, absolutely.
The frame of body is frame of mind. When you
Frame of body is a frame of mind. Correct. Wow. Yeah, that's I should actually, I'd completely forgotten to use that. The frame of body is the frame of mind. Well, thank you, Teresa. How do I
I
say
am a
your
trainer from him, so it was easy for me to make the connections.
So you ride horses?
I was a horse trainer before I did 2020 for 25 years.
Awesome. I have 2 horses here in India. and I am riding horses since I was 4 years old. So hopefully one day we get to meet.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. How do I say your name? Can you say your name? Tirza. Okay.
Tirza.
Anyone else? Any comments, thoughts? I'd love to hear from you. Jan, of course.
Yash, congratulations on the chapter launch. My question was, did it start online also, or maybe I missed it?
No, so it was at 15 members when we went online. But the majority of it came online, and it wasn't like I launched a chapter 2 weeks ago with 46 members called Petra. Then we launched Poseidon, and we're launching BNI Sofia next week, 2 weeks from now, which is going to launch with 40 members. But now all of the members that are coming in after 15-20 are all online. Yeah, and it wasn't easy, but you know what I should share? We have a chapter called BNI Aphrodite. This chapter, the leadership team decided for whatever, they set a target that they want to have 2 new inductions every week, yeah. Every week after the lockdowns. I'm talking about the month of May. They wanted to have 2 inductions every week, no matter what. And guess what? They've done it 6 weeks in a row. 6 weeks in a row. They've added 12 new members. And I promise you, I have not had a single conversation with them. I just found out they did it. And when I asked them how they did it, they said, well, we just decided. So I said, well, I don't know how I can use that in a training, but that's all they did. And they're all coming online.
Super. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Jan. And guys, you have people like Jan and Yash, like you have a great bloody team. This is crazy. Jules.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank you, Josh, for your very inspiring training.
Thank you. My pleasure.
A thing keep me thinking of, how can you bring back pride into a chapter where pride has gone?
Oh man, that's a great question. And it follows through not just with a chapter, right? Because I have the pleasure of dealing with individuals sometimes. I used to take personal mentees, and then my time wouldn't allow it. So I stopped about 2 years ago. But the question is, how do you build pride in an individual, right? Because a lot of times, I think the most dangerous thing in this world is an insecure man, I think. So tell me who, hey, Yash, you and I were talking about this, right? We actually had a conversation about it. Do you think a proud man beats his children, or an insecure one?
Insecure, yeah.
Do you think a proud man hurts a woman, or an insecure one? An insecure one. An insecure man is the most dangerous thing to have around you. So how do you build pride? How do you build pride in a person, in an organization? And there's a process to follow. Well, the simple answer is good communication. Jules, I know I'm being very basic, but the simple answer is good communication. So everything that I was telling you today in terms of clarity, consistency, communication, all of the C's that I was talking about leads to building pride, because there's no simple answer. But I personally feel that every person loses pride because of one thing. So I'll get into the details if you guys don't mind. Is most people think that that experience leads to emotion, right? So Jules, you can unmute yourself. You and I are going to talk. So experience leads to emotion. That's what people think. And so for example, my question to you is, can we control all the experiences that happen to us? Can you control all the experiences that happen to you? Right? Like this light falls on me. Can I control it? No, I can't. No. Guys, chat box. So Jules, can we control all the experiences? No.
No, we can't. No.
But can we control all the emotions that are generated from every experience?
Neither, I think.
Yeah, most people will say, what do you guys think? Can we control the emotions? Some say yes, no. Katarina says no, but you can control how you handle. Okay. I don't know if you're talking about what I'm talking about, but you're very close to that, I'm presuming. Yeah, so the answer is yes, 100% you can control the emotion that is generated out of every experience. But then you're saying, no, Yash, you can't. If someone dies, you feel sad, right? Like someone dies, you feel sad. There's no way you control that emotion, Yash, you're lying. And the answer is no, because the formula is screwed up. People think that experience leads to emotion. I believe that they've forgotten a big piece in the middle. Not forgotten, this is like science. The big piece in the middle is experience, meaning, emotion. That means experience, when attached to a meaning, leads to emotion. For example, I tell you that yesterday my neighbor's rat died. Anyone wants to cry? No? Why? But what if you as a child had a pet rat, and the rat was everything in your life, and it meant so much to you, and you loved the rat. If I told you someone's rat died, you're going to feel sad, because there's meaning attached to it. And without meaning, there is no emotion, Jules. So the only thing that we must do is to change the meaning. For example, let's say you break up with your partner, which is maximum cases that I have to, friends and people that come to me. Because I think people think money is a problem and health is a problem. I say bullshit. Relationships are a problem. Most people understand money, they understand health. They don't understand relationships. And I am working on a book on relationships, and so I'm telling you is, all we need to do is change the meaning. For example, you break up with someone. Let's say a girl breaks up with me. And my meaning, so experience is breakup. My meaning, let's say my meaning is, I'm not good enough for her. Like, she was so much better than I was. And I'm a horrible guy. That's why she broke up with me. What's going to be my emotion? Sad. I'm going to feel horrible. But let's say same experience, breakup, and my meaning is, well, she broke up with me because there's someone better in the world for me, or she broke up with me because I was too good for her, right? Whichever meaning you choose to attach is going to lead to a different emotion. But meaning is a choice. Meaning is a choice. You don't believe me? I was talking to this one guy, like right here. You get to see my office, by the way. This is where I work. I know some of us like the virtual backgrounds. I don't really like him, because I feel like I'm missing. I want some real connection with you guys. But this guy came to me sitting right here, and he says, Yash, he was telling me his story and kept going. And in the middle, he says, Yash, my father died. He's a very successful entrepreneur. And he says, Yash, my father died when I was 16. And just my natural response was, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And he says, Yash, don't be sorry. Because that was the greatest thing that happened to me. My father died because he wanted to make me successful. That it was his meaning. And the guy is almost worth $1 billion. Now you're thinking, oh Yash, but that's like so heartless. That's so, really? You think having a heart makes you better? In what way? Just because you can attach a negative meaning to something and shed a few tears, you want me to feel sympathetic for you? I'm not going to. Because why attach a meaning that is debilitating? Why not attach a meaning that's empowering? And the way to build pride is to change the meaning that they've attached to it. And if you change the meaning, they will feel proud. Most people are insecure because of poor meanings to experiences in their life. Man, you guys are making me really, really bring it out.
There you go. Thank you. And unfortunately, we're getting almost to 2:30, Josh. Maybe two things to conclude it. What would you tell or teach your 20 years younger version of you, with all you know and with all you've read now? And what's the thing you learned from your trip to Africa, if you remember?
Okay, so wait. So sorry, I was reading the chat box. I completely blanked. So the question is, what my one lesson from Africa?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me, if I can show you, I'll forget finding photos. But so my last trip to Africa was in February. In February, I get this message from, and I had a great friend from the Netherlands who was traveling with me there. But anyways, we were, this friend of mine who was one of my mentors for public speaking. And he sends me, we haven't seen each other in like 3 years. And he sends me an email and he says, Yash, I'm going to Africa. You want to come? And you don't say no to a guy like this. So I said, okay, sure, we're going. I didn't know what we're doing, what we're getting into. Turns out that we were going to Tanzania, to a place called Lake Eyasi, to live with a tribe called the Hadza tribe. Okay, and the Hadza tribe, I don't know if you've heard of them, but the Hadza tribe is one of the very few remaining truly nomadic tribes in the world, right? So they have no, for example, they live in the Stone Age. That means they have not discovered metal yet. And it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable how it is to live with them. But anyways, we go to the Hadza tribe, which is an illegal thing to do. We could do it only because my friend Eric has been going there for 15 years. So it was 10 of us. We go there with him, and we are living with them in the middle of the African savannah. And when I mean living, I mean living. There was, it was like a Steven Spielberg movie, right? Like we had to wake up, and the only thing you do is go hunt. And you eat what they eat, you sleep where they sleep, and you do what they do. And we were sleeping under this big baobab tree. And when you sleep under this tree in the middle of the savannah, when you're sleeping in the middle of the night, you can hear lions and you can hear hyenas. And it's pretty freaky. But you know that they're not going to come near you. You know why? It's because of the fire, right? The fire around you when you're sleeping, like there's a fire in the middle. Lions, no wild animal, apart from maybe a leopard, that's a different story, will come near you if you have a fire, because after years of hunting, they've realized don't go near the fire, right? So, we're sleeping there, and we are doing all of this with them. And the way they hunt is they hunt with bow and arrow. So the greatest lesson was the second day, and by the way, the Hadza tribe, their names are in clicks. So the chief's name was Bile. No, not Bile. His name was Ngongam. Ngongam. Okay, and they have like 50 different ways of clicks, and it's really difficult. But this guy, the chief, is about this high, like he's about 5'1", maybe 5 feet tall, super skinny, nothing on his body, like no fat at all. This little guy, he's the chief of the tribe, and he comes up to us with this big bow and arrow, and the bow is like a big bow they make themselves, and they use a what do you call it? A deer tendon, like Achilles tendon from a deer, to make the thread in the bow and arrow, right? But anyways, he comes up and he takes the bow and he holds it and he pulls it forward and shows us how you use the bow and arrow. So he takes it and he pulls it and he does all of this, and he shows us that you take 2 fingers. He was saying 3 fingers. You take 3 fingers and you pull it to the back of your ear. So we said, okay, and he pulls it to his back of his ear, and the first thing he does is hands it to me. And I take the bow, and of course he wants me to demonstrate. And I said, well, look, if this little guy can do it, of course I can do it. And I take the bow and I pull it, and this is it. The maximum I could pull is this much. There's no way it was moving any further. And it was embarrassing because all these Hadza guys are laughing at me. My friends are laughing. And I said, oh yeah, really? You think you can do it? So I gave it to this other friend who was American, big guy. He pulled it, nothing. He passed it on to someone else. Pulled it, nothing. 10 of us tried. None of us could do it. And I said, this is really embarrassing. So I took it back and I started pulling. And I pulled with all my strength. Like I was shaking when I was pulling it. When this chief ever so gently came up to me, put his hands on my shoulder, and he said, to stop. Like he gestured me to stop. And I let go and I was holding the bow. And through a translator, so sweetly, the chief says, son, why are you pulling so hard? Just take your right hand and push. He says, why are you pulling so hard? Take your right hand and push. And then I held the bow, and all I did was I pushed, and I couldn't bring it all the way back, but I could pull so much more. That crazy? Because when you're pulling, the thing is going into your fingers, the thread, and it's hurting, and you're not able to get as much motion on it. But as soon as I pushed, I could do it. And isn't this how we live our life? Like so many times we're pulling at a door with all our strength, and all we need to do is just push it inside. And we pull so hard. We pull so hard, but all you need is for someone who knows how to do it to tell you, hey, look, just a small tweak, stop pulling and pushing. And that was the greatest lesson from Africa.
Thank you very much, Yash, and a great lesson for us as well, as this whole presentation has been. So thanks again, and the two of us will absolutely catch up and see how we can move this further. Any closing comments from you to the Dutch and Flemish Belgium crew?
For me, I love all of you, and thank you very much for having me. If you want to find me, please. So Instagram is, let me send you at Yash Vasant. So go on your Instagrams, you'll find me there. And on Facebook is at Yash Vasant Official. That's the page. Hey, thank you, Eric. You're too kind, man. I really appreciate it. Don't go to the Facebook page. I don't use it. Don't go to the personal profile. Go to the page, which is this one, and you'll find all of our BNI videos and everything there. Thank you, everyone. Really, I respect that you gave me so much time. I think that's awesome, and I really look forward to seeing you in person. This is horrible. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this in a webinar next time.
Totally agree. Thank you, Yash. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Ciao. Ciao. Look forward to hearing from you.